America's best days are yet to come. That's because conservatives like you know and live the values our great country was built on. The Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard in the D.C. swamp each day, shining the light on a bright future. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
You're listening to the best of the Mark Levin Show. Have a very Merry Christmas. It's always a great honor to speak to you. Millions and millions of you from sea to shining sea, actually every corner of the planet. On every platform imaginable. And I hope you'll put up the volume. You, your kids, maybe in their car at the dinner table. Because I want to have a chat with you at this National Town Hall meeting. Over the weekend, we saw a real spectacle. We saw in Qatar. What we saw in Qatar were elites, ruling class elites in government, in politics, business, media, elites. Not all, but most of whom are quite wealthy, meaning in Qatar. Sprinkled in there were leaders of other countries to give this event some patina of having a diplomatic presence. But the purpose was clear. Qatar is a nation of about 330,000 people, smaller in population than the city of Baltimore. It is on top of massive amounts of natural gas. Extraordinary wealth in the hands of very few. Qatar was created a few decades back. It has a monarchy, a brutal, genocidal, vicious monarchy. A monarchy that survives by police state tactics, a monarchy that survives by terrorism, a monarchy, 330,000 people, that has decided it seeks to overthrow the West. It supports the Taliban, the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, ISIS. It supports all the entities that seek the destruction of the West, many of which have killed hundreds, if not thousands, of Americans and threaten to do so again. We've built up an entire infrastructure of counterterrorism to fight the very people that Qatar supports. And yet, in the past, we built an air base there. The Biden regime extended the lease 10 years. And of course, our current president has essentially stated that we will go to war in defense of Qatar. Qatar has as its mission the destruction of the United States from within, the destruction of the West, and of course the destruction of the state of Israel. And it puts its money where its mouth is. Now, none of this is new to you if you've listened to this program, if you've watched my show on Fox. But what is new is the extent of the success that this regime is having. Success it's having right in front of our eyes. And it has caused me to conclude, as I've hinted to on this program and mentioned at the end of last week again and mentioned on my Fox show Saturday, We have a new imperial ruling class. Both parties. A new imperial ruling class. Businesses, unions, media, financiers. They celebrate this monarchy. They celebrate its fascism. They celebrate even the Marxist-Islamists who align with them in support of these regimes. These are elitists. Not you and me, not Mr. and Mrs. America. You get nothing out of this. This isn't intended for you. This is intended for a relative handful of power-hungry elites in our country. They seek power, they seek wealth, they seek glory, and they've used a new platform called podcasting, really developed in the early 2000s, as a means by which to communicate the views, the beliefs, the so-called values of the Qatari regime, as a means by which to attack those who embrace traditional Americanism, Judeo-Christian values under which this nation was founded, capitalism. They used the podcasters and others, as the Japanese used Tokyo Rose, except Tokyo Rose was in Japan. They push a new form of propaganda, indoctrination. They claim to be America first as they trash America, as they trash our military that fought so heroically in World War II. They accuse our nation, like the Marxist-Islamists, of being imperialists and colonialists. They claim to support isolationism, but they don't. They oppose alliances with our allies, and they demand alliances with Qatar, with the enemies who want to destroy the West. Seems counterintuitive, but it's not. These are grifters. The vast majority are individuals who've become enormously wealthy or famous or infamous as a result of support from this regime and regimes like it. Traditional constitutional conservatives who reject this are to be smeared and attacked as being the opposite of what they are. That is, being accused of opposing MAGA, when in fact it is these individuals who, when the veil is down, when the texts are leaked or released in litigation, who are those who attack the President of the United States, who is MAGA, and his supporters. American values and beliefs, even representative government, are barriers to this new imperial ruling class elite. Capitalism is condemned, just as it's condemned by the Marxists. What is this free market capitalism stuff? They embrace a bizarre form of feudalism and Marxism. Magazine American Conservative, the reprobates that write over there. They call themselves paleo-conservatives. They're actually Neanderthals. They're paleo-nothing. Nothing to do with conservatism. Now, these people seek the centralization of power. While they go on and on about the billionaires and the wealthy, they seek the centralization of wealth, of capital, And they want a big chunk of it. They've actually built nothing. They call themselves financiers, hedge funds, equity funds, which rely heavily on the enormous wealth of these potentate fascist monarchs in the Middle East, especially Qatar. They don't care that Qatar funds terrorism. They don't care that Qatar was involved in 9/11. They don't care that Qatar is destroying our colleges and universities. Let them eat cake. They post photographs of boozing it up, giving the finger to you, the middle finger, the American people. What are you going to do about it, they figure? Besides, we have all these great followers on our podcasts. We're influencers. Now we even find out that's corrupt. That many of the people supposedly watching them are from foreign countries. Foreign countries. Some of them even lie. Some of them even buy followers, but no matter. Their targets, young people with minimal experience, young people who are not being taught history in college, young people who are rejecting our founding, young people who they stereotype as down and out, victims of the system, incapable of accomplishing anything under our current Western values and capitalist system. There they are in Qatar, the new globalists. Have come to thought they're not isolationists. They're isolationists when it comes to our alliances. But when it comes to our enemies, they are globalists. Their hands are out, and our enemies are happy to fill them with money, lots of it. Directly and indirectly. Most of these people are media creations. Tucker Carlson is a media creation. Bannon, a Hollywood boy, a crook, pled guilty being a crook, ripping off many of you, a media creation. Who else? The comedians, media creations. That's all they are. They've actually accomplished not a damn thing. They haven't built a damn thing. They don't even have professions. Not electricians, not plumbers. Nothing. Zero. They literally create nothing. And they become enormously wealthy doing what they do. Partying with whom they party. And then they want you to believe that they represent the little guy when they're using the little guy. They're abusing and exploiting the little guy. That's what neo-fascists do. That's what neo-Nazis do. That's what Marxists and Islamists do. As they ride the wave of the MAGA movement they never created, and in secret they hate. As they laugh behind the back of one of the greatest presidents in American history, Donald Trump. This is our battle today. These are the new imperialists. These are the new ruling class elitists. They hate this country. And then they wrap themselves in America first, which is repulsive. They tell us Reagan was no good. Churchill was no good. Hitler was misunderstood. Their prime minister of Qatar is a great man. Their prime minister of Iran is misunderstood. Putin is a great leader. Crazy, isn't it? But with young people in particular, not a lot, but enough. This has an appeal. America First becomes for them a bumper sticker for destroying America. More when I return. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. This is the best of Mark Levin. Merry Christmas. How often do you hear these people criticize Qatar? Or CARE? Or radical Islamism? They trash our country, they trash Israel, they trash Ukraine. Neil Patel, one of the invisible hands behind Tucker Carlson, spent many years working for Dick Cheney when Dick Cheney was vice president in the Bush White House. Did you know that? He was his policy chief. Now he's at Qatar with Tucker Carlson, his business partner, railing against the establishment. He's a whore. Tucker Carlson, similar. Bill Kristol was his boss for years. That was his world. It's no different than Patel. I can go down the list, but more when I return. We're coming upon the 250th birthday of the United States, and it has me thinking, what will America look like 250 years from now? My friends at the Heritage Foundation want to know what you think. What policies should America prioritize? What principles should carry us into the decades ahead? As America enters a new golden age, Heritage recognizes that this is the time to take stock and to be intentional about how we shape the future of America. And they can't do it without your input. So please go to heritage.org/LEVIN and let them know what you think is important. Without patriots like you stepping up and speaking up for what you believe in, America as we know it can't survive for another 250 years. Please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN. Take the survey on America's future. This survey takes less than 10 minutes to complete, but it is critical for making sure that the America we pass on to future generations is an America we're proud of. Go to heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. This is Mark Levin wishing you a very Merry Christmas. Now back to the best of me. If you look at most of these imperial ruling class elitists in the podcast world, you should keep in mind that they've actually done absolutely nothing. They've worked their way into a position which they desperately seek to hold on to. Most of them couldn't hold jobs in the past. They're grifters. But it's worse. If they're grifters, that's one thing. But they're grifters for an enemy state. They're grifters for an enemy cause. Any way you cut it. What's this hate they have for Ted Cruz and Tom Cotton? Abject hate for Dan Crenshaw, a war hero. Hate for Marco Rubio, a fantastic Secretary of State. Hate for Ron DeSantis, And then go down the list. The superstars of constitutional conservatism. What's this hate they have for Ronald Reagan, who defeated the Soviet Union, whose portrait hangs over the left shoulder of President Trump in the Oval Office? What is this? And Carlson says over and over again now he hates the Republican Party. He's not going to vote Republican. He hates Christians who support Israel. But he never says he hates the Qataris, he hates the Islamists, he hates CARE. Never. Not once. Why is that? In 12 months' time, Third Reich Bannon went from being a Christian Zionist, his own words, to a big-time anti-Semite. What happened? I told you the guy is a confessed, convicted crook. These guys are grifters, man. It's all about money. They can't actually create anything, but they've figured out. They figured out an angle. An angle. And they're not the only ones. You have businessmen have as well. You have entertainment industry has as well. You have certain politicians have as well. Enormous wealth being created from doing absolutely nothing, serving the desires of Qatar. I joked, I think it was Friday, right, Mr. Producer? Could you imagine what they would pay me? But you have to have principles and morals, proper upbringing by your parents. I haven't changed one damn bit. Not one damn bit. These people have changed. And they're not MAGA. And they're not Trump supporters. When President Trump took on Iran, they defended Iran. When our brave pilots were bombing Iran's nuclear sites, they were trashing us. When Israel was defeating the enemies that surround it, they were trashing Israel and defending the enemies, including terrorist countries and terrorist regimes that have killed hundreds, if not thousands, of Americans and others. There they were over the weekend, this new imperial ruling class elite. There they were, bowing to the monarchy, asking set-up questions. All performative. Where that friggin' monarchy gave safe haven to KSM, the mastermind behind 9/11. When the FBI went to his apartment to capture him and bring him back to the United States, that monarchy protected him and helped him escape, which led him to decapitate Daniel Pearl, an American, and then slaughter nearly 3,000 of our fellow citizens. And they're over there partying, filling their faces with food and booze, talking about what it's like to be in a wonderful country where you can have a Lamborghini and leave your key in it and not worry about it being stolen. This jackass Carlson, I'm going to buy a home here. So buy it. But he announces it knowing damn well that the Qatari royal family decides who can and cannot buy a phone. They own this little bastard, hook, line, and sinker. Why else does he platform Hitler supporters? Why else does he platform Holocaust deniers? Why else does he trash tens of millions of Christians? Why else does he side with the Hitler supporters against one of the greatest leaders of all time, Winston Churchill? You ask why? I'm telling you why. I'm telling you why. He's not against the Republican establishment. He's against you, Mr. and Mrs. America. He is an imperial ruling class elitist. With his home in Maine and his home in Florida and his home in Qatar. With his $150,000 to $200,000 a speech. Oh, yeah. And that's okay. It's hardly capitalism what he's doing. That's right. And then, what's worst of all is none of what I just told you, except this point. How he plays to the youth of this country who are not being taught history, Western philosophy, who go through these high schools and colleges and universities that are turning out as many Marxist-Islamists as they possibly can. They preach to these young kids, your kids and grandkids, that there's no hope, that America sucks, that market capitalism is a disaster, that everybody before was wrong. Wrong. Ronald Reagan was a loser. Today's a new day. Today's a new day. Watch me. Follow me. Vote for the people I say. And they've done nothing except play the system. Neil Patel going from Cheney to Qatar. Seriously? Carlson going from Crystal to Qatar? Bannon, a complete slob, a buffoon. Candace Owens, what the hell has she done in her life? But follow her, boy, follow her. She's got her shirt on, she's got her boots on, she's marching. Follow her. Little Adolf, Nick Fuentes. He's a nerd who knows how to curse and spew racism, bigotry, and anti-Semitism. That's it. And the report's out that a big chunk of his audience is absolutely from overseas. It's a big piece done in Politico. So long, I stopped reading it. Some guy interviewed these guys, and he wants to know where they're coming from, and the alt-right, and what's happening to MAGA, and what's going to happen to the Republican Party. And not one constitutional conservative is interviewed who can expose these bastards for what they are. Not one. Now, let me tell you what's going to happen. I'll put my marker down right now. If we, you and me, Mr. and Mrs. America, who love our country, who don't have a bigoted, racist bone in our body, who think Qatar is the enemy state, you and me, we get nothing from Qatar. The American people get nothing from Qatar. We don't think Putin's the greatest thing since sliced bread. We don't think it's cool to interview the prime minister of Qatar or the prime minister of Iran, especially when you're there as a propagandist and a toady and a lapdog, not as a real journalist. No, we don't think it's cool that you trash tens of millions of Christians, millions of Jews, our economic system, and then claim you're America first. You're an American disgrace. That's what you are. These people are going to cost us not just the midterm elections in a little way. We're going to get slaughtered. We're going to get slaughtered thanks to these people. Even if the economy's chugging along, the American people, you, red-blooded Americans, many of whom have fought for this country, many of whom are cops and firefighters, you, the electricians and plumbers who watch what's taking place in places like Qatar, where these people are getting filthy rich, preaching against your country, claiming the system is against everybody, doing the propaganda for the enemy. You're on to them, you're smart. College degree or no college degree. Blue collar, white collar, union, non-union. You're red-blooded Americans. And you know this is a fantastic, great country. And the idea that a monarchy in the Middle East with 300,000 people can buy off these people, directly or indirectly, and that you're going to fall for this, that you're going to fall for the claim that Hitler was better than Churchill, trash the greatest generation, all those GIs, Americans, your parents and grandparents who fought for this country, fought for the wrong side. The idea that you Christians who believe in the Holy Land, and you want to protect it from the Palestinian terrorists and the Islamists in Qatar, that there's something wrong with you. The idea that the Israelis who fight for their very survival and are surrounded by people who murder and rape their women, that they're the aggressor. The idea that Vladimir Putin is a good Christian man, and that he runs beautiful subways and clean streets as he sends 1 million men to their death, that somehow you, Mr. and Mrs. America, are going to fall for this. Fall for these people who have contributed literally nothing to our country. Zero. They're takers. They're grifters. They're media concoctions. Comedians. Some of them. Jokes, all of them. And now they're telling you they want to destroy the Republican Party. That's what they're telling you. They defend the Qataris, but the Republican Party needs to be destroyed. If they destroy the Republican Party, Mr. and Mrs. America, what happens? The Democrats take over, the Marxists and the Islamists, because they have more in common with the Marxists and the Islamists than they do with you, red-blooded Mr. and Mrs. America. That is the truth. Their payday, their so-called fame, more like infamy, is not earned the old-fashioned way. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. This is the best of Mark Levin. Merry Christmas. This is untoward. It's unethical. It's unseemly. It's grotesque. It's unconscionable. And they want you to believe that they care about you, they care about your future, and they care about the country. It's interesting. Tucker Carlson never interviews 9/11 family members, but he seems to be the interviewer of choice of the genocidal maniacs around the globe. Why is that? Why is that? He's not alone. He's not alone. They had a Christmas party. We only know this because they brag about these things and they post them. Didn't he have a big Christmas party, Mr. Producer? Or is it you who sent me that link? Somebody did. It was you. You're the one. I thought to myself, boy, this would have looked great in 1930s Germany. Right after Kristallnacht. What a crowd. What a crowd. Just fantastic. What has Qatar ever done for you, Mr. and Mrs. America? They're going to give us trillions. When are they going to give us trillions? They have our base. Now, that's long-standing, but they have our base. They're going to build a facility on our base in Idaho. They get a defense cover from the United States. And we've gotten from them what? Billions of dollars brainwashing our children and grandchildren to hate our country. Now aimed at K through 12. Billions of dollars supporting terrorist front groups like the Muslim Brotherhood. That's not even a front group. That's just a terrorist group. But Hamas still has Hamas leaders in Qatar enjoying the same hospitality, I suppose, as Tucker Carlson and Cattell and all the other reprobates. These people are thoroughly and completely unpatriotic. But I'm American. I get to make these choices. Yes, you do. And we're Americans, and we get to comment on it. I've got a big announcement at the beginning of next year when I come back. I'm very excited about it. We're expanding our media empire, and not a single foreign nickel from anybody. And I've never taken a foreign nickel from anybody, including the Israeli government, including the American government. I pay my way. Nor do I charge conservative groups to pay me some outrageous confiscatory fee of $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 to speak. I just speak. Not often, but if I think it's the right place and the right time. It's not what these other guys do. So there's not a gotcha stuff isn't going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
You're listening to the best of the Mark Levin Show. Have a very Merry Christmas. Man, oh Manischewitz, we've got lots of stuff we're going to get into tonight. But before we do, I told you we're going to have our little Constitution moments and Revolutionary War moments, because I think this kind of information is very important to try and educate, if not re-educate. Many of our young people aren't hearing these things. Now, last night we talked about some of the signers of the Constitution. We also let you know that 70 delegates were appointed, only 55 attended, and only 39 of the 55 actually signed the final document. That little piece of information is unknown by most for some reason. We talked about Haym Salomon in the Revolutionary War period, the main financier of the Revolutionary War, including the Battle of Yorktown, where George Washington specifically wrote James Madison and said to please contact Haym Salomon. I have a mutiny on my hands, potentially, and we got to pay the soldiers and get them some food, and we've got this big battle because the French are going to take their navy out of here in about 3 weeks if we don't make a decision. Haym Salomon. For little Adolf Fuentes and Tucker Carlson. He was born in Poland as a Jew. He came to the United States and immediately in 1775 joined the Sons of Liberty in New York and joined the early revolutionaries immediately. And he was very, very well known, but not known virtually to anybody today. And we're going to get into this over the course of the next year. We're going to have a lot of fun with this. And I've gone through a number of the men now who've signed the Constitution. William Samuel Johnson, I'm not going to do it again, but we discussed him. Richard Bassett, Jacob Broom, George Reed, William Feud. Let's touch a few others. Daniel of St. Thomas, Jenifer. He was from Maryland. He's a mysterious figure. Almost nothing's known about his early years. No one is certain where he was buried. He was sort of a moderate supporter of the revolutionary cause and a regular but mostly quiet attendee to the convention. Sounds like your typical politician in Maryland. Roger Sherman, who actually is quite well known by a lot of people, but just to make sure, I want to underscore who he was. He's from Connecticut. He was a self-taught man as well, and he gave up the law to become a shopkeeper in Connecticut and soon embarked on a successful political career. He served in both the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. He was a key man behind the Connecticut Compromise, was Roger Sherman. Here's one. Gunning Bedford Jr., Delaware. A lawyer by profession, it's believed that Bedford served as an aide to George Washington during the Revolutionary War. At the convention, he spoke passionately in support of the rights of smaller states. He was from Delaware, after all. John Dickinson, who actually is quite known as the penman of the Revolution. Dickinson was a highly educated, articulate advocate of a peaceful solution to the rift with Great Britain, and wrote the famous Olive Branch Petition, a heartfelt but futile effort to get George III to rethink his policies regarding his North American colonies. Abraham Baldwin of Georgia. Having served as a minister and a tutor at Yale, Baldwin was a chaplain in the Continental Army for part of the Revolutionary War and then turned to a career in the law, serving 18 years as a member of Congress and then as senator. I'll touch on one more. We'll cover some more tomorrow, of course. Daniel Carroll of Maryland. Daniel Carroll. Most of these folks you've never heard of before. Carroll led a private life until entering public office in 1781. When he was elected to the Continental Congress, he was a friend of George Washington and an acute attendee of the convention. He made around 20 speeches during the various debates for Maryland, and yet Daniel Carroll is not really well known, is he? Then there's James McHenry of Maryland. An Irishman by birth, McHenry did not migrate to Northern America until 1771. He put his medical training to good use during the Revolutionary War, serving as an army surgeon, and thereafter went into politics. His journal is one of the best sources on the debates that took place during the Constitutional Convention. So we also have James McHenry's notes. Of course, Madison's notes were the most extensive. And so we'll have more to discuss tomorrow. The men who signed the Declaration of Independence. The Constitution of the United States. We'll get to the Declaration. We're going to move backwards on this, but I thought you'd find it interesting. I want to play Governor Josh Shapiro, who desperately wants to be the Democrat nominee for president. He is spending a lot of time with the most radical elements of the Muslim community in and around Philadelphia and in the state of Pennsylvania. I mean radical imams. He's also given $5 million to that radical imams, I guess they call it some kind of academy or something. So he's trying to play down his Jewish race with non-Jews and play it up with Jews. I hate this kind of politics where these damnable politicians do this sort of thing. I mean, Josh Shapiro plays up his Jewish heritage to Jews and plays it down to Muslims and others. It's just, it's diabolical, really. You either are something or you're not. You don't have to play it up and you don't have to play it down. But I want you to listen to what he said about Ilhan Omar, about the president, and so forth and so on. And Spencer Cox of Utah, who's the governor there. Most of you didn't know who he was outside of Utah until Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and you saw his various public comments, which were actually quite good. But the guy's really quite a liberal rhino Republican, apart from all of that. Cut 11, go.
I think leaders have a responsibility to speak and act with moral clarity. That's true of governors, and I think Spencer Cox meets that mark. I try to meet it, and I think it's a responsibility that falls on the President of the United States as well. I think this president not only failed tonight to speak and act with moral clarity by attacking a fellow American, whether we agree or disagree with her positions in Congress, but what he does when he attacks a fellow American like that is it sends a signal to others in this country that others can be scapegoated, others can be singled out, others can be targeted, or worse yet, others can become victims of political violence. I think the president has a responsibility here, as do, and I agree with Spencer, as do all Americans, to try and lift up the rhetoric and tamp down the hate. And I think the president needs to do better.
Mm-hmm. Many of you have heard of Ayaan Hirsi Ali. She's actually quite well known. She's a formidable intellectual. She's married to Neil Ferguson, and they're quite a remarkable couple. And she was born in Somalia. And she wrote a piece in the Free Press that I want to read to you about the Somali culture and the Somali community, which Josh Shapiro doesn't know anything about, and instead he gets on his high horse and says the things that he says while he's funding radical Islamists. So I'm going to take a break now, but I want to read this to you. It's going to be really eye-opening, and then what gets into this issue when people come into this country, they're supposed to be checked in advance to determine whether they can and will assimilate into this country. And if they come from certain cultures that simply are not going to tolerate that sort of thing, then they shouldn't be here. And that's Trump's point. And if Trump had said it with all the wisdom of Aristotle, they would still condemn him. They would still condemn him for saying it, period. And these are the people, whether it's a Spencer Cox or Josh Shapiro or more radical elements for sure, who would tolerate the cultural, diminution of the American system in the name of political correctness. And that's a problem. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
As a consumer, you can carry the success or failure of businesses in the palm of your hand. Their success can depend on your decision to spend money with them or their competitor. Well, my friends at Pure Talk would like to say thank you from the bottom of their hearts for choosing Pure Talk for your wireless needs. Because of you, they've had a record-breaking year. Because of your generosity through their Roundup for Charity program, they've been able to donate over $500,000 to America's Warrior Partnership, who stands on the front lines of helping to prevent veteran suicide. Your patronage has allowed Pure Talk to donate 1,000 hand-sewed Made in America flags to your fellow veterans. And when you choose Pure Talk as your wireless provider, you help Pure Talk support American jobs right here in our country. Like I said, as a consumer, you have the power to make or break companies. And with the money the big wireless guys throw around on advertising, you're inundated with offers everywhere you look. So from everyone in the Pure Talk family, thank you for your trust, and God bless you. This is Mark Levin wishing you a very Merry Christmas. Now back to the best of me. All right, now you're going to learn something, as I did reading this article from Ayaan Hirsi Ali, a great thinker, great writer, intellectual, just a great American, who came to this country from Somalia and knows the Somalian culture quite well. And here's what she wrote, and it's very much worth listening to. All right. Here? Okay. Minnesota takes pride in its restraint, decency, and an earnestness that sometimes verges on self-parody. Yet that identity is complicated by the presence of one of the world's largest Somali communities, which hasn't simply settled in Minnesota, but is clustered tightly and predictably with the same social logic that governs life in Mogadishu, where I was born. Anyone who knows Somali culture has long known where this would lead. Anyone familiar with Edward Banfield would have predicted it twice. Banfield, you see, the sociologist who conducted a now famous study of a small village in southern Italy, argued that some societies are held back not by a lack of resources or brains, but by a worldwide view he called amoral familism. The villagers of Caramonte were neither lazy nor unintelligent. They were trapped in a system that encouraged them to seek the short-term interest of their kin, but punished cooperation beyond the family. In his book, The Moral Basis of a Backward Society, it irritated all the right people. It arrived in 1958, just as multiculturalism was beginning its ascent, and it offended the new orthodoxy to a degree that critics all but buried it. Yet Banfield's insights are even more accurate today, especially when applied to Minnesota, which is dealing with a crisis that polite society refused to see. Yep. It is a rerun of the reaction conflict over Haitian migrants last year, when President Donald Trump claimed that immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, were eating cats and dogs. Most of the media went apoplectic. His recent description of Representative Ilhan Omar, a Somali immigrant, as garbage triggered the same reflex. Once again, Trump used exaggerated language to goad progressive elites into defending something that should be indefensible, the bleak state of the immigrant underclass. Trump understands something that both the left and the moderate right have forgotten. That would be people like Josh Shapiro and this guy Cox from Utah. Politics is not a dissertation. Rather, it's the art of emotional direction. He makes people talk about what he wants them to talk about. And beneath his theatrics lies a truth his critics cannot deny. Minnesota is experiencing cultural fragmentation, institutional strain, and a near total breakdown of public trust. A murder rate has surged in Minneapolis. Public money is missing, stolen by local fraudsters, including dozens of Somalis, who swiped COVID aid money through a sophisticated scheme. $1 billion seemed to have been pilfered with ease, and not one major Democratic politician in the state expressed contrition or even mild discomfort. The theft was treated as an unfortunate administrative mishap rather than a civic scandal. Twin Cities religious leaders assembled Thursday for a long denunciation of Trump, and the tone was predictable, solemn, righteous, utterly detached from the facts. Not one person mentioned the enormous fraud that rocked the state. Not one acknowledged the criminal networks operating within Minnesota's refugee origin population. The gathering felt less like a reflection and more like a campaign rally draped in vestments. Senator Amy Klobuchar, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, and the rest of the state's Democratic leadership class have perfected the art of missing the point. When Somali gangs terrorized western neighborhoods and Somali men rape young girls, politicians avert their eyes. The hapless Frey even butchers a few Somali phrases on local TV, convinced that linguistic pandering can substitute for the courage he lacks. It would be funny if the stakes weren't so high. It's as though acknowledging the cultural dimension of Minnesota's crisis would break some unspoken covenant. But ignoring culture has consequences, and Minnesota is living with them. To be clear, Somalis in Minnesota are not unique in their patterns of clustering. In the Rigby neighborhood of Stockholm, known widely as Little Mogadishu, Somali businesses, dress, language dominate public life, and residents endure frequent shootings, bombings, arson attacks, open drug markets, and violent gang rivalries. Even worse, the neighborhood produced Fawad Mohammed Khalaf, a Somali-Swedish imam who preached jihad in Rigby before rising to become a senior al-Shabaab leader. His path shows how tightly concentrated enclaves can generate not only local disorder, but militants whose ambitions reach far beyond their communities. Ladies and gentlemen, this gets much more important as I read on, and I want you to listen to this, about the Somalis in Minnesota, what's taking place, and how the Democrats are attacking Trump, who's actually exposing this cultural issue, and it's not just with Somalis. I'll be right back. As a consumer, you can carry the success or failure of businesses in the palm of your hand. Their success can depend on your decision to spend money with them or their competitor. Well, my friends at Pure Talk would like to say thank you from the bottom of their hearts for choosing Pure Talk for your wireless needs. Because of you, they've had a record-breaking year. Because of your generosity through their Roundup for Charity program, they've been able to donate over $500,000 to America's Warrior Partnership, who stands on the front lines of helping to prevent veteran suicide. Your patronage has allowed Pure Talk to donate 1,000 hand-sewed Made in America flags to your fellow veterans. And when you choose Pure Talk as your wireless provider, you help Pure Talk support American jobs right here in our country. Like I said, as a consumer, you have the power to make or break companies. And with the money the big wireless guys throw around on advertising, you're inundated with offers everywhere you look. So from everyone in the Pure Talk family, thank you for your trust, and God bless you. This is the best of Mark Levin. Merry Christmas. Let's continue with this incredibly important piece at the Free Press by Ayaan Hirsi Ali, scholar and intellectual, an American now, came from Somali, was raised in Mogadishu, and she wants you to know about the culture there. The pattern in, just bear with me here. The pattern in Sweden is similar in Britain. Somalis cluster in London districts such as Hackney, Islington, Ealing, parts of Camden, where unemployment, poverty, dropping out of school, and youth crime are persistently high. Some young men drift into gangs like the Woolwich Boys, a Somali-linked group notorious for drug trafficking, stabbing, string of murders at unsettled southeastern London. Canada looks similar. Toronto's Rexdale, Ottawa's South End, Edmonton's inner-city neighborhoods display the same markings. Concentrated settlements, gang recruitment, cycles retaliatory violence. This pattern reflects a dark cultural logic that I saw and lived firsthand. I grew up in Somali clan-based society. The loyalty to kin was absolute. Loyalty to the nation was theoretical at best. When Somalis migrated to Kenya, as I did, the same pattern played out. The Sijui Somalis, who had integrated into Kenyan life over decades, clashed with newcomers who treated the state as something to be manipulated. Fraud and theft became predictable expressions of an underlying worldview. The Sijui saw themselves as part of Kenya. The newcomers saw Kenya as a resource. Banfield would recognize all of this insanity. Amoral familism, in other words, amoral family culture, is a cultural blueprint. It assumes that resources are scarce, the world is dangerous, and survival depends on extracting maximum benefit for one's own family. Nation building makes no sense from that perspective. If a road is built, the question is not how will this help the community, but which family will control access to it. If foreign aid arrives, the question is not how to distribute it fairly, but which family will claim control over it. The mindset explains why Somalia collapsed. It explains the dysfunction of Afghanistan, Haiti, and parts of North and West Africa. It explains why Minnesota now faces problems it can't make sense of, let alone solve. What Minnesota, Sweden, and Britain and Canada all have done repeatedly is confuse compassion with abdication. They assume that if they offer refugees safety, housing, welfare, and job opportunities, they will integrate into modern civic life. But in societies ruled by multiculturalism, integration never comes. Newcomers revert to the only social model they trust, the family, the clan, the inner circle. The state becomes a distant entity to be milked repeatedly and without hesitation. How many times have I said here on this program, on Fox and elsewhere, that the Islamist belief system and culture is incompatible with constitutional Americanism? Now, there are Muslims who've gone through this Reformation thinking process and so forth, like our dear friend Zuhdi Jasser and so forth. I'm not talking about him. I'm not talking about him. And there's literally Muslim countries that are modern, moderate Muslim countries. Indonesia is an example. I'm not talking about that. You know damn well what I'm talking about. Iran, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and more. Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Mothership, Muslim Brotherhood. She goes on. Clustering preserves trauma, carries forward old rules, and recreates the dynamics that spurred people to leave in the first place. But it also fuels the logic of retribution, the lure of violence, and the conditions in which extremist ideas take root. The good people of Minnesota should be alarmed. Trump, for all his bluntness, grasps the central problem. The left does not. The moderate right refuses to, like Cox, the governor of Utah. Yep. It's very, very important. When Somali crime spikes, we're told not to blame the community. These are individual acts. But when Trump says something provocative, these same leaders claim he endangers the community. You heard that from Shapiro when I played his clip. So which is it? The goalpost shifts depending on who needs political protection. See your point? When crimes are committed, it's the individual. Even though the community, the crimes are increasing. Don't blame the community, but they defend the community. Governor Tim Walz, who rushed to denounce Trump, insists that the Somali culture bears no responsibility for the violence tearing through the state. Yet he is quick to criticize the culture of police officers during the riots that followed the killing of George Floyd in 2020. The solution to the chaos isn't mysterious. It's what worked for the Sejui in Kenya. It's what worked for Italians, Irish, Jews, and countless others who came to America before the age of multiculturalism. Full assimilation. Full assimilation. No clustering. No parallel societies. And you see the efforts also by Islamists to create Sharia communities, which apparently supported by the neo-fascist right. To help Somalis and to help Minnesota, we must insist on a civic identity that supersedes clan identity. Those who refuse should not remain in the country. A nation cannot survive as an archipelago of imported codes. Trump's bluntness may offend delicate sensibilities, but at least he's honest. His crass comments shock, but they also expose the deeper flaw in America's immigration philosophy. If Minnesota wants a future that resembles Minnesota, it must make a choice. It must make a choice. Assimilation or fracture. Cultural cohesion or cultural evasion. A functional society or a patchwork of rival loyalties. And this matters because Somalia is a nation where rape is not simply common, but often treated as routine, where femicide, killing women, still occurs, and where accountability is weak. If newcomers don't undergo a full cultural and moral reboot, that is true assimilation, then they will carry those assumptions into the societies that receive them. The stakes are higher than most leaders are willing to admit, but the path forward is clear. The question is whether anyone in Minnesota's leadership is brave enough to take it. And the fact is that Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, that Cox, the Rhino Republican governor of Utah, are not brave enough. Simply not. And few politicians are, other than Donald Trump. That is the truth. Here is Spencer Cox in Utah. Cunt 12, go.
Look, I disagree with Congresswoman Omar. I think she should be voted out of office, and I think I can do that without attacking her religion or her race or her ethnic background. I think that's really important. I know that the president disagrees with me. He and I have had these conversations. I have to say, during the Charlie Kirk shooting, in the conversations we had, he talked to me about nonviolence and trying to be a voice for that. I understand he's not interested in uniting the country, and he would tell you that, I think, if you were sitting here with us tonight.
You see what a weasel this guy is? Uniting the country around what? He has no comprehension, and he doesn't want to have any comprehension. He's a political weasel about what Ayaan Hirsi Ali has spelled out in the Somalian community. And what's amazing to me is when you look at the Islamists, and this is a word that they use to characterize themselves. Somali's and Islamism, what's that all? I said it's a word they use to characterize themselves. The Islamists have no intention of assimilating to anybody else's culture. Their intention is to secrete themselves in other cultures and destroy those cultures. And this is why a Spencer Cox is wholly unfit to be anything more than he is. This is why Josh Shapiro should never be president of the United States, ever. It's not about bigotry or racism in this respect. And if you want to use different language, that's perfectly fine. But the nub of the matter is, there's certain cultures that people grow up in, and they bring those cultures with them, and they have no intention of shaking them off. None. It's the Palestinians in Gaza. It's the Palestinians in other parts of Israel. They have no intention. They raise their children to want to kill, slaughter. That's what they do. We have imams in this country right now, whether they be in Texas, whether they be in California, whether they be in Michigan, whether they be in New Jersey, or wherever they are, who are preaching the overthrow of the United States, who are preaching killing. I've posted a lot of this. You can go to memri.org, MEMRI.org. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. A dear friend of mine, Mort Klein, is the president of ZOA. He is the child of Holocaust survivors. He's a dear friend. He's a very, very decent and kind person. He was testifying today, I believe, in front of the House Judiciary Committee. But he came in from Philadelphia to Union Station. He was with another friend of ours, Adam Turner's a big boy, big guy. And there's sort of a permanent protest taking place at our Union Station. This is the nation's train station. Trashing Jews, trashing the usual. And he decided to have a debate with one of them. And Mort's not that big. And this guy got in his face and called him a kike. For Jews, that's like the N-word. Right in his face, in the United States of America, they have these bullhorns. They were using bullhorns, they told me, right into the faces of National Guardsmen who are standing there, right in their faces, claiming First Amendment rights. You don't have a First Amendment right to do that. You know what that is? That's assault. It's not battery, but it's assault. You don't actually have to touch somebody. Look it up yourself in any legal dictionary. You don't actually have to touch somebody to assault them. Did you know that, Mr. Producer? And if they have the fear of being battered, that is also, in many localities and states, considered assault. This is the United States of America. This has only been going on the last few years. We've reached the point now that there are so many people in this country who've been imported into this country by the Democrats who hate it, who will not assimilate. On top of that, decades of indoctrination and brainwashing with the Marxist ideology. And here you have the fusion I've been talking about. Now everybody talks, yeah, you got the Marxists and you got the Islamists. You know, when I was talking about this, nobody would touch it. They were scared to death. Just like when I took on Mr. Jew hater Tucker Carlson. Nobody wanted to touch. What are we going to do about him? Didn't do anything about him. Confront him. Now everybody's a tough guy. The more the merrier. That's my view. The more people of goodwill out there, the better. But the problem with the Somalian community in Minneapolis is a cultural problem. And it's not going to go away. And it's not going to be fixed. Especially when you have people like Walz, Shapiro, Cox, Klobuchar, Fry, the whole political establishment, both parties, who want you to believe that this is a problem with individuals, except when they don't want you to believe it's a problem with individuals, that it's a problem with a community. This is a problem with a community where each individual reinforces the cultural attitudes and beliefs that they learned and were raised on in Somalia. And they're here, and they're not going to reject them. Or from parts of the Middle East, and they're not going to reject them. They're going to use them. There's simply no allegiance whatsoever to America, to America's culture. None. Zero. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
As a consumer, you can carry the success or failure of businesses in the palm of your hand. Their success can depend on your decision to spend money with them or their competitor. Well, my friends at Pure Talk would like to say thank you from the bottom of their hearts for choosing Pure Talk for your wireless needs. Because of you, they've had a record-breaking year. Because of your generosity through their Roundup for Charity program, they've been able to donate over $500,000 to America's Warrior Partnership, who stands on the front lines of helping to prevent veteran suicide. Your patronage has allowed Pure Talk to donate 1,000 hand-sewn Made in America flags to your fellow veterans. And when you choose Pure Talk as your wireless provider, you help Pure Talk support American jobs right here in our country. Like I said, as a consumer, you have the power to make or break companies. And with the money the big wireless guys throw around on advertising, you're inundated with offers everywhere you look. So from everyone in the Pure Talk family, thank you for your trust, and God bless you. This is Mark Levin wishing you a very Merry Christmas. Now back to the best of me. Here of a piece in Breitbart, Minnesota. Nearly every Somali household with children is on welfare. Again, not because they're lazy, but because they want to take advantage of the system for their personal needs and their family needs. The hell with the taxpayer, the hell with the government, the hell with the whole country. That's her point. More than 8 in 10 households headed by Somali refugees in the state of Minnesota are on one or more forms of American taxpayer-funded welfare. New data published by the Center for Immigration Studies reveals that's a great group, CIS. Now remember, you're not supposed to be in this country unless you are self-sufficient, unless you can demonstrate that you can provide for yourself. The data, based on 10 years of data from the Census Bureau's American Community Survey, shows drastic disparities between native-born American households and Somali-born households in Minnesota, where nearly 80,000 residents have Somali ancestry compared to 0 who had Somali ancestry in 1990. 0. In particular, the data shows 81% of Minnesota households headed by Somali refugees are on one or more forms of welfare, including 27% who are on a cash welfare, 54% food stamps, 73% Medicaid. It's also a reason why the expenses are going through the roof. There's a reason why certain communities do certain things. There's a reason why the Somali community in Minneapolis, 80,000 strong, are doing what they're doing. It's not per chance. It's not by accident. It's not because of racism or bigotry. It's because of their culture. More when I return.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
You're listening to the best of the Mark Levin Show. Have a very Merry Christmas. A lot to cover today. I'm glad you're here. I think Erica Kirk is a remarkable young lady. You've seen a lot of her on Fox, promoting Charlie's last book. And if she doesn't promote it, nobody does, so that's very important. But I'll tell you what's really bothering me, America. These people who are trashing her on the left and these neo-fascists on the right. These people are evil. Absolutely contemptible. For Tucker Carlson to do what looked like a 5-minute hostage film, this flabby little frat boy who grew up with enormous wealth, his father married an heir to the Swanson frozen food family. He went to private schools, boarding school. All he does is trash our country, whine about our country. Our country sucks. Our government sucks. Our economy sucks. Meanwhile, this guy has a massive home somewhere in Maine, a massive home somewhere in Florida, and now he's going to have a home in Qatar, although he left Qatar very quickly after he made a complete ass out of himself. Trashing our country, trashing our way of life, trashing our allies. He's a contemptible buffoon. But he puts out this video where he does his usual statement, evil, vile, libelous statement, and then he pretends he doesn't make the statement. And everybody's on to him now. Everybody knows he's a phony and a fraud. If I were saying, but I'm not saying, and I have friends on both sides, but then again, and what is this guy? He's no governor on his mouth either. He's a putz. That's it. Evil, hateful, nasty, spoiled little brat. That's the way, apparently, it's been for a long time. He's a media creation. He's done literally nothing. Think about it. Literally nothing. Not a great lawyer, not a great surgeon, not even an adequate or average plumber or electrician. He contributed nothing to America. Nothing. But he continues to trash America. He's on a warpath against Christians, particularly pastors who actually preach the gospel. He hates Jews. That's very obvious now. He's sort of the Pat Buchanan of the modern age, or worse. He trashes the greatest generation. We platforms these Hitlerites. He rewrites history like Marxists, condemning Churchill and Britain, which were defending themselves and their allies. I mean, how sick can you be? They use Saul Alinsky tactics, try to viciously destroy anybody who disagrees with them. Anybody. Usually attacking their race, their religion, their ethnicity. You know, we know what Nick Fuentes is. Nick Fuentes is a Klansman in a funeral suit. That's what he is. Nothing smart about the guy, nothing new about the guy. Massive amounts of people listen to his program from overseas, particularly Muslim countries. He's a grifter. That's how he makes his money. Another asswipe. But Carlson was born with a platinum spoon in his mouth. He was handed everything. He's still handed everything. He has billionaires financing him. He's got people with links to Qatar, if not directly, indirectly. He's Qatar's favorite lapdog. Not even a close second out there. He's Qatar's favorite lapdog. The same Qatar that was involved in the murder of 3,000 Americans and others on 9/11. The same Qatar that supported the Taliban, the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas. The same Qatar that enslaves tens of thousands of people. Who is this fool, this moron? Has he said something intelligent? No. Has he written something intelligent? No. Has he done anything useful? No. He's a concoction. A concoction. Laughing all the way to the bank. That would be the Bank of Qatar. He's a hideous person. That video that he did with respect to Erica Kirk was unbelievably loathsome. He can't come out and say, leave her alone, Candace. Leave her alone. Instead, he's got to spew the conspiracy theories. I don't know if they're true or not. I know they're not true. I know the Mossad did not play a role in Charlie Kirk's death. The FBI and the Utah police got their man, and he's on trial now. There's not some massive conspiracy involving a judge, a potential jury, prosecutors, defense lawyers, and everybody else. I mean, this isn't a tough one. The guy was caught red-handed. He's carving stuff into bullets. They've got his texts. His parents turned him over to the cops. I mean, if this isn't open and shut, then I've never seen open and shut. Of course, there'll be a trial. But why not just participate in, but gaslight the conspiracy theories? Everybody knows that Candace Owens is a psycho job. She's a head case. Everybody knows. She's an anti-Semitic pig. Everybody knows it. Her father-in-law knows it. I just assumed it didn't need a lot of explanation. Everybody knows that Steve Bannon was a crook, that he confessed to it, that he was ripping off maybe many of you to get money to build a wall that he was never going to build. He pled guilty to it. And he begged President Trump for a pardon at the federal level so he wouldn't be charged there. That's what he is. He's a crook. Everybody knows it, especially him. Everybody knows Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of the dumbest people to ever serve in the House of Representatives. Everybody knows it. The left knows it. That's why they keep platforming her. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene, imbecile. And I can go down the list. Leave Erica Kirk alone. Leave her alone. She's a grieving widow. She's trying to do the very best that she can. I haven't talked to her. I don't know her that well. I did know Charlie quite well. When I would go to TPUSA events, and I haven't been invited there in 3 or 4 years, but I don't ask to be invited to anything. She was always with him. She loved him. She has children with him, young children who she needs to raise without their father. He was horrifically assassinated. Get off her back. Leave her alone. And don't put out your phony video, you little bastard, Carlson. We are playing all sides. All sides. Because this fool, in the end, he failed as a journalist. He failed on TV. He now has this little niche that he's carved out. But that little niche requires him to attract as many psychopaths, as many unstable, bigots, racists, anti-Semites, anti-Christians, anti-Americans as possible. It requires him to attract as many foreign Islamists in Qatar, in Pakistan, all over the world as he possibly can. And his Saul Alinsky tactics against some of the most decent people you could ever know. Some of the most decent people you'll ever meet. They were working for a while. But then I decided enough is enough. I don't like bullies. I don't like bigots. I don't like racists. I don't like anti-Semites. I don't like individuals who grift off of our country while trashing and undermining our country. What's being done to Erica Kirk is nauseating. From the Marxist-Islamist left and from the neo-fascist right. Sometimes, America, things are as they actually seem. Sometimes, America, facts actually are facts. Who benefits from these conspiracy theories? The slobs, the slugs, like Tucker Carlson, to attract more and more people. They have to. Unfortunately, for many podcasters and self-appointed phony influencers, you've got to keep hyping the preposterous. You got to keep hyping the most outrageous. That's what these people do. That's who they are. They're tearing this country apart. They're going to elect the Democrats in the midterm elections. They're going to elect a Democrat in 2028. And then they're going to blame all of you, Mr. and Mrs. America. Or they're going to blame Donald Trump. I see it already. They're certainly not going to blame themselves. And when Tucker Carlson and his ilk tell you that they hate the Republican Party, they despise the Republican Party, that they're not going to vote Republican, they're already telling you what they're doing. Now, I want to ask you, Mr. and Mrs. America, I have the most patriotic audience in America. That's you. Do you think we're going to attract voters as constitutional conservatives? If we embrace racism, bigotry, misogyny, anti-Semitism, anti-Christianity, anti-Americanism, do you think? Is there a party in America that's ever run on those policies? Is that who you are? Is that who you want to be associated with? Do you literally want to pay for that? And subsidize that? This guy's laughing at you all the way to the bank. What do you think Rush Limbaugh would say today? He never liked Tucker Carlson in the first place. What do you think he'd say about him? Seriously, America, what do you think? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
This is the best of Mark Levin. Merry Christmas. I'm sure I'm not alone, not in this audience, with red-blooded Americans. But I want to speak to the men for a moment. What do you think about some pissant trashing a widow like this. Is that okay by you? I'm asking the men in this audience. Is that okay by you? That some guy keeps gaslighting this stuff, trying to make money off this stuff, trying to get more eyes, more grift? I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I know we red-blooded Americans, we men have not sunk this low. It's time to cut this guy off. It's time to be done with this guy. It's time to throw him out with the trash. Because that's what he is. He's trash. I'll be right back. This is Mark Levin wishing you a very Merry Christmas. Now back to the best of me. I meant to start the show a little differently, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Big announcement when I return from vacation after the Christmas holidays. And I'm very excited about it, and I think you will be too. So let's go through a few more of these men who signed your Constitution and made this country what it is today. Ever hear of Nathaniel Gorham? I doubt it. He's a delegate from Massachusetts. Gave up an apprenticeship to set up his own successful business. He embarked on a very active life in politics, was one of the most active attendees at the convention. He lost his fortune in 1790, the result of a failed land speculation deal in Massachusetts. A lot of these men lost everything in various ways. That's Nathaniel Gorham. Nicholas Gilman from New Hampshire. At the Constitutional Convention, he had a distinguished career in the military, served throughout the Revolutionary War, reached the rank of captain in the Continental Army, and after the convention, he failed in his first bid to become a senator, but succeeded in 1804. This is very fascinating to me, and as the new year comes, we're going to spend a lot of time on American history, early history and beyond, because I really feel that if we're going to save this republic, if we're going to get our youth back, that we have to make really good use of these platforms. Not this other sick stuff that's being pushed out there. How about David Brearley? Brearley, B-R-E-A-R-L-E-Y, from New Jersey. From New Jersey. It's a prominent Freemason. Let's see here. He served in the Revolutionary War as a captain, then a colonel, going on to a career as a judge after the war. At the convention, he opposed proportional representation in Congress. William Livingston, actually, many people may well know about William Livingston. Although his family wanted him to pursue a career as a businessman, he chose the law. With a great success thanks to his skills as a writer. Tiring of the legal practice, he had semi-retired to the life of a gentleman farmer and a poet by 1771. You've heard of Alexander Hamilton, but I want to focus on those you've not heard of. Richard Dobbs Speight of North Carolina, a signer of the Constitution of the United States. Orphaned at the age of 8, he was sent to Ireland for his education and returned to America in 1778, whereupon he jumped into the Revolutionary War as a member of the state militia of North Carolina. He attended every session of the Constitutional Convention. So we'll stop it there. We'll pick it up again tomorrow. We're just going through some of these names just to create some, interest and motivation. You, of course, are free to dig in yourself, but it really is fascinating to do this. These men who had so much to do with our founding and the nature of your lifestyle and how you live. Very, very important. One of the things I want to focus on now is an article here. The headline in the Telegraph: China would destroy U.S. military and fight over Taiwan, top secret document warns. Now look, yesterday afternoon, I was in Washington, D.C. I don't like going to Washington, D.C., but it's the second time in 2 weeks, and I'll be going next week to the White House. But I'm at this event, invited by the Jerusalem Post to speak for 10 or 12 minutes, which I did. But also there was a guy by the name of Thomas Barrett. He's the envoy to Syria. I believe he's the ambassador to Turkey. He also works with Lebanon, and he is absolutely awful. And to hear him speak about his ideas for the plan in the Middle East, so preposterous. And at the middle of it was Israel. Israel won't get along with Syria. Israel won't get along with Turkey. Israel won't get along with Lebanon. Israel. I'm going, what is with this guy? They need to create a situation where there's not so much war with Israel and its ally. And I thought to myself, every single war that Israel's been forced to fight has been a defensive war, even in 1967, as they were being surrounded by the Arab countries. They launched an attack against them in the 1967 Six-Day War. And because of the defensive posture, they didn't want to wait to be attacked, tiny little country. And I was listening to this guy, and I was stunned. I could tell he was bad by public comments that are published that he makes, but I was literally stunned. The idea that Turkey would be part of this international military force in Gaza is outrageous. Erdogan is an Islamist. Erdogan has destroyed Turkey. Erdogan is a backer of Hamas. Erdogan gave safe haven to a number of the leaders of Hamas, just like Qatar. Erdogan talks about the elimination of Israel. Erdogan makes some of the most outrageous speeches. And I'm thinking to myself, is this what the envoy's promoting? Surely the administration won't agree to something like that. Because what would that mean? That would mean, Mr. Producer and Mr. and Mrs. America, that Turkey would be handed a military foothold in Gaza, right on the border with Israel. Right, Mr. Producer? In addition to Turkey working with Syria, Turkey would have a military presence in Syria, which it doesn't now, a military foothold, a significant presence in Gaza, which it doesn't right now. And I'm thinking, what the hell is this? What is that? Surely the commander-in-chief won't go for that. And I pointed out yesterday that the most important, obviously, and yet the smartest voice, the most pro-American, pro-Israel voice when it comes to that part of the world in the administration is the president himself. The president himself. The guy also said in an interview in Qatar last week that Israel basically likes to think it's a democracy. And monarchy probably is better fit for that part of the world. Now, look, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not one of these Bush guys who believes that democracy, parliamentary democracy, constitutional democracy, whatever you want to call it, works in the Islamist world. I believe I'm the one who has told you that Islamism and Americanism are utterly incompatible, right? Who's been saying that for years? Me. Who's been explaining it for years? Me. And you know why if you've listened to this program. But the idea, and he's up there and he's going round and round about, well, you know, it's the democracy, but this and that. And so I got up there and I said, I don't need 1,000 words to tell you that, yes, Israel is a democracy. So I'm thinking, this guy? Who is this guy? I don't know who this guy is. I don't know. But I was stunned, and I'm not the only one who was stunned. I think most of the audience there was like, what? I know that you can't have all allies. You have representative republics or parliaments, and I'm well aware of this. We're all well aware of it. We're not stupid. But there are strengths and weaknesses, and certainly you don't open the door to Turkey to send its army into Gaza on the border with Israel. You don't give Turkey F-35s. We've already given it to Saudi Arabia. F-35s are not chocolate to be handed out. It's the most cutting-edge technology, period, second to none. And we won't have control over it if one of these countries decides they want to share it with somebody else, or somebody within that country wants to decides they want to share it with somebody else. But I literally couldn't believe what I was hearing. I thought, maybe I'm in the wrong meeting here. Is this, what is this? Did I walk into the Students for Justice in Palestine meeting on Capitol Hill? What happened here? All right, I've got more to this point about why I raised this, and I want to get into China. Oh, I'll point out how they're related in a moment. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
This is the best of Mark Levin. Merry Christmas. There's a piece in the Telegraph that reports on a top secret document. So what I'm telling you has already been made public today, so I'm not breaking anything. Not that I would. And the nub of the matter is this. Communist China would destroy the U.S. military in a fight over Taiwan. We would be sending our major aircraft carriers there, and they can blow them out of the water within minutes. Within minutes. How, Mr. Producer? What would they use? What did the Iranians shoot at the Israelis? Those massive missiles. The same thing. Because the Chinese are basically, and have basically provided all that technology and fuel to the Iranians. Ballistic missiles, the size of a bus, by the hundreds, fired at our aircraft carriers. They cannot possibly knock them all out. That's the state of play. That's why we need to focus on very serious matters rather than be distracted. Distracted by the morons and the shiny objects. And not just the Qatar Carlsons, but the left, the media, who try to create controversy and scandal out of everything that's normal and regular. Now, what I just told you should shake you. That they could blow our aircraft carriers out of the water with their ballistic missile system. That is a secret document. Has anybody else anybody mention this to you today? Nobody. It's not on any of the news programs. It's not on conservative talk radio. The podcasters are very, very busy, trashing the United States. But I'm telling you something that's very important. Very important. I think we just made a trade deal with China, and they got some kind of cutting-edge technology. I don't know what it is. I believe it related to some types of chips of some kind. I wouldn't be making those deals with China. That's just me. I'm not a deal maker, though. I absolutely would not. But I don't think we are, as a people, psychologically prepared for any of this. Because we have a very weak ruling class. As I call it, the imperial ruling class. That is mesmerized by monarchies. We have a Democrat Party that literally hates this country. Literally hates this country. Not Democrats out in the audience. I'm talking about a party, an infrastructure, an ideology that hates the country. You get the Mondanis and you get the Bernie Sanders, and the AOCs and the Talibs and the Omars. They hate us. They hate the country. That's not me saying it. They've said it. I'm just telling you what they've said in so many words. We are not prepared psychologically, technologically. We are not. The 250th anniversary of our country. And by that, what is meant is 1776, July 4th, the Declaration of Independence, when we declared our independence. The fact of the matter is the Revolutionary War actually began before that. It began in Boston, spread to New York, spread further to Philadelphia. They were great, great patriots. We together are going to learn more and more about them. I'm going to make sure of it on this platform and the new platform that I'll be working on. Oops. You get the point. And even with my Fox show, I said to my wife, I said to my crew, I've got to inform the American people, particularly young people, about the greatness of this country, the greatness of our founding, the great heroes who created what we are living. Because if I don't do it, it's not going to be done. I'll be right back.